One of the most common questions I've been getting lately sounds simple, but it usually leads to a lot of confusion. If my humidor is still at the same relative humidity, why do my cigars feel different when the temperature changes? And usually, that question turns into debates about numbers. Different RH targets, different rules, different charts. But the issue isn't disagreement. The issue is that we've been talking about humidity without talking about temperature. Because relative humidity doesn't exist on its own. Temperature is the missing half of the equation. And once you understand that, a lot of conflicting advice suddenly makes sense. When people ask about RH at different temperatures, what they're really asking is this: am I slowly ruining my cigars without realizing it? That concern is understandable, but it's also where panic starts. So today isn't about giving you new rules or new numbers. It's about understanding how temperature changes the way humidity behaves, so you can stop guessing and stop overcorrecting. Relative humidity is a percentage, not of the cigar, not of how wet your humidor feels. It's a percentage of how much water vapor the air is holding compared to how much it can hold at that temperature. The last part is critical. Water exists in the air as vapor, and temperature controls how easily that vapor stays suspended. When air is warmer, water vapor stays suspended more easily. When air is cooler, the same vapor becomes harder to keep suspended. Relative humidity simply tells you how full that system is at that temperature. So when temperature changes, the capacity of the air changes, even if the RH number doesn't. This doesn't make RH meaningless. It makes RH contextual. Temperature doesn't replace humidity, it completes it. This is where most confusion starts. When temperature changes, the air inside your humidor responds immediately. The cigar does not. We've talked about this before. Air reacts fast, cigars react last. The air's behavior can change in minutes or hours. The cigar's internal moisture changes slowly, often over days or weeks. That gap matters. Moisture doesn't move just because it exists. It moves because of imbalance, and that movement is slow. So when temperature changes, cigars can feel different long before they've actually changed in any meaningful way. That's not damage, that's lag. When people talk about the 70-70 rule, they mean 70% relative humidity at 70 degrees Fahrenheit. And here's why that exact same setting can produce very different results. Relative humidity tells you how full the air is at that temperature, not how aggressively moisture is moving into the cigar. Two humidors can both read 70-70, but one may be extremely stable, another may experience frequent temperature swings, or one may be constantly corrected. So when someone says 70-70 works for me, what they're really saying is, in my environment, 70% RH at 70 degrees is stable. And when someone else says 70-70 ruined my cigars, they're not describing a failed number, they're describing a different system. The numbers didn't change, the environment around the number changed, how it behaved. This is where things often get taken too far, so let's set boundaries. This does not mean you need a different RH for every temperature. Higher temperature automatically overhumidifies cigars, or that RH suddenly doesn't matter. Warmer air being able to hold more moisture does not mean it instantly gives that moisture to the cigar. Cigars are dense, moisture transfer is slow. Short-term temperature or RH shifts don't instantly damage cigars. Most problems come from instability and overcorrection, not from a number being wrong. And while temperature matters for other reasons too, like mold risk or beetle activity, today we're focusing specifically on how temperature changes humidity's behavior, not those separate risks. For this example, we'll hold one thing constant: 65% relative humidity in a stable environment. We're only changing temperature within the range most people will actually store cigars, roughly 60 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit. These aren't recommendations, they're observations of how cigars tend to behave in stable systems. 60 to 63 degrees Fahrenheit, cigars often feel firmer to the touch, burn a little slower, produce slightly tighter smoke, show more focus over sharper flavors. The cigar isn't dry. Moisture and combustion are simply moving more slowly. Around 64 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, that same cigar often burns evenly, feels balanced, not soft, not brittle, delivers flavors closer to what many people expect from that blend. This is where many smokers say their cigars feel dialed in, even though the RH number hasn't changed at all. Around 69 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit, cigars often feel slightly softer, burn faster, produce thicker smoke, taste heavier or flatter if pushed too far. Not because the cigar suddenly absorbed more moisture, but because heat accelerates both moisture behavior and combustion. The cigar didn't change its moisture percentage. The temperature changed how that moisture behaves when you light it. After learning all of this, a lot of people make the same mistake. They try to apply everything at once to their entire collection. That's not experimentation, that's gambling. If you want to learn what works best for your palate and your environment, do it on a small scale. Use a smaller humidor or split a box. Keep the rest of your collection stable. Make slow, intentional changes to the test group and give them time. Cigars are a lot like food. Two people can enjoy the same dish, prepared differently. There isn't a universal best number. There's what works for you. Don't look for specific numbers. Find your numbers. And watch long-term behavior, not day-to-day drift. Where you live absolutely matters when it comes to cigar storage. Not because cigars follow different rules in different places, but because your region determines what is realistic, stable, and low stress for your storage system. Some regions make it easy to hold certain temperatures and RH levels. Others fight you constantly, even with an electric humidor. If your humidor is always working to correct the room around it, you're going to see more swings, more stress, and more temptation to overcorrect. And that's where problems usually start. Dry regions, holding higher RH can require consistent active humidification. In very humid regions, lowering RH can be a non-stop battle. The same applies to temperature. Some climates naturally sit in the comfortable cigar storage range, others don't. And forcing a humidor to fight its environment 24/7 introduces instability. So while cigars don't know where you live, your humidor absolutely does. Region doesn't change what cigars prefer. It changes what your system can maintain consistently. There's another regional factor that almost never gets discussed. What happens when you take the cigar out to smoke it? If your storage temperature is far removed from your normal smoking environment, that cigar experiences a rapid change the moment it leaves the humidor. Cold, dry air, hot, humid air, air-conditioned rooms, outdoor patios. That sudden transition can tighten or loosen the wrapper, affect burn rate, increase the risk of cracking if the wrapper dries too quickly. Not because the cigar was stored wrong, but because the change was too extreme. In many regions, storing cigars slightly closer to the environment where you actually smoke them reduces that shock significantly. That's why advice like just store everything at X% and Y degrees works beautifully for some people and completely fails for others. Region influences how hard your humidor has to work, how often conditions drift, how cigars transition when moved, and how forgiving your setup is over time. So instead of asking, what's the correct RH and temperature, the better question is, what settings are stable where I live and gentle on my cigars when I smoke them? This brings us back to the theme we've repeated throughout this series. Don't chase numbers. Don't panic over short-term drift. Watch long-term behavior. Your region doesn't force you into a single number, but it does narrow that range where stability is easiest and safest. And stable will always matter more than theoretical perfection. Once you understand how temperature and humidity work together, the numbers stop fighting each other. Storage stops being stressful and starts being predictable. You don't need perfect settings, you need stability, patience, and time. Because storage isn't about chasing numbers, it's about maintaining balance. If this episode helped clarify how temperature actually affects your cigars, let me know in the comments what range you're currently storing at. Not what you think you should be storing at, but what's been stable for you where you live. Those real-world experiences help everyone watching learn faster. And if this series has helped you feel more confident about storage, consider subscribing. We're building this knowledge step by step. And thank you, as always, for spending time with me here in the Honest Humidor.